गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका दोबारा स्वागत है। वणक्कम, जय हिंद और प्रणाम। आज मैं 3 दिन के बाद दोबारा लाइव प्रोग्राम कर रहा हूं और वो भी एंड गेम यूक्रेन एंड बियॉन्ड की यूक्रेन का कहाँ युद्ध का कहाँ अंत होने वाला है, कब होने वाला है, कैसे होने वाला है और उसके बाद क्या होगा। और इसके बारे में बात करने के लिए हमारे साथ हैं कर्नल अजय सिंह। कर्नल अजय सिंह, welcome to Gunner Shot once again. It's a pleasure to have you back on the show.
Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure coming onto your show and having a little jugalbandi as we go along.
Yeah, good. जैसे ये यूक्रेन वॉर अभी जैसे हम सबको पता है कि दुनिया में 3 जगह इम्पोर्टेंट लड़ाई या तनाव है, मिलिट्री तनाव। एक यूक्रेन में जो पिछले 2 साल से चला आ रहा है, एक अभी इसराइल और हमास के बीच में पैलेस्टाइन में हो रहा है, और तीसरा जो चुटपुट कुछ हो रहा है, जो स्लोली गोइंग अप द लैडर, इज इन साउथ चाइना सी। यूक्रेन के बारे में पिछले 2 साल से हमने बहुत प्रोग्राम किया है, बहुत लोगों ने प्रोग्राम किया है, और इट इज नाउ पीपल से इट्स इन स्टेलमेट, इट्स एक्स वाई जेड। बट what do we need to know? It's one of the major conflicts which is ongoing. We need to know कि भाई ये क्या होने वाला है आगे, क्या ये इसका कोई अंत है कि नहीं, और अगर अंत हुआ वो कैसे होगा, और उसके बाद क्या होगा, और इसका परिणाम बाकी विश्व में क्या होने वाला है, ये देखना है। और इसीलिए कल अजय सिंह हमारे साथ हैं, क्योंकि इन्होंने एक किताब भी लिखा है ऑन यूक्रेन, जिसमें मैंने भी एक चैप्टर लिखा, और ये इन्होंने बहुत एनालिसिस किया यूक्रेन के बारे में। तो मैंने सोचा इन्हीं से पूछूं, और ये यूक्रेन का युद्ध रोज फॉलो करते हैं ऑन अ डेली बेसिस। तो मैंने सोचा इन्हीं से पूछूं कि क्या होने वाला है यूक्रेन में। ऑल योर्स अजय, गो हेड। आप हिंदी में बात
Thank
कर सकते हो,
you.
अंग्रेजी में
Thank
बात
you,
कर
sir.
सकते हैं, और
Thank you,
अगर
sir.
चाहिए तो आप तमिल में भी बात कर सकते हो।
Hindi, English will be
हाँ,
right.
इंग्लिश में बिल्कुल। आप
Yes.
जो आपको कंफर्ट लेवल है, आप उससे बात कीजिए।
Thanks, sir. Sir, today is the 669th day of the Ukraine war. A war जो लोग देखो ना 2 हफ्ते 3 हफ्ते में खत्म हो जाएगी कहानी. But today, after almost 2 years, I am actually seeing जो end state जो आपका title था, the end state is coming close. Not in this year, but in the coming campaigning season. Today, we have to understand what is happening in Ukraine. Firstly, sir, पूरे साल हम सुनते रहे थे यूक्रेन लॉन्चिंग इट्स स्प्रिंग ऑफेंसिव, उनका स्प्रिंग ऑफेंसिव आ रहा है, लेपर्ड टैंक्स गए हैं, चैलेंजर टैंक्स गए हैं, हाउविट्जर्स गए हैं। जो स्प्रिंग ऑफेंसिव उन्हें लॉन्च किया था मेरे ख्याल से जून जुलाई में, उनके अचीवमेंट्स, आई विल टेल यू सर, इट इज, आई विल नॉट से जीरो, but it is minuscule. They have recaptured, they have only reached a depth of 11 kilometers at its deepest point. That means जो लोग कहते थे the aim of the offensive to capture all the area retaken by Russia, उसके नजदीक ही वो नहीं आ रहे हैं। जो मैप आप दिखा रहे हो सर, आपने देखा हो जो ग्रीन डॉट्स है, डॉट्स ही तो है जो यूक्रेन ने टेक ओवर किया है इन द एरिया ऑफ अ प्लेस कॉल्ड तोकमक, जो कि जापोरिजिया के नजदीक है। They have only broken the first defensive line, और इस इलाके में to reach the sea they have to break 6 more defensive lines. They got 7 defensive lines in the area. ये उन्होंने कार्रवाई की है आफ्टर ऑलमोस्ट 5 months ऑफ अ वेरी स्लो एंड मैं कहता हूं वेरी टिमिड ऑफेंसिव। बहुत टिमिड ऑफेंसिव था, डर डर के वो लोग आगे चलते रहे थे। दिन में 400 मीटर 500 मीटर, दैट इज नो ऑफेंसिव। द टैंक्स वर नॉट यूज करेक्टली एट ऑल। बट if they go at this rate, sir, it will take them 104 years to recapture the area they have lost. That is the speed at which this so-called offensive is going. So, as military man, as any man, sir, as a common man also, it tells you instantly the offensive is a no-go. अभी winter आ गई है. They will not make much progress beyond that because the ground will become hard. March में spring तो होगा, there will be no progress. But this is a critical time, sir. ये winter, I won't say the pause. Local actions तो चलते रहेंगे because ground is hard. Tanks will be able to move better in hard ground, in fact. So little offensives will continue. Lekin more than that, this period will be used by both Russia and Ukraine to consolidate. अभी consolidation में क्या होगा? Russia will consolidate defensive lines. They will consolidate the positions. Remember, sir, they have captured 18% of Ukraine. Kherson, Zaporizhia, Luhansk, Donetsk, all are in their hands. Crimea तो 2014 में उन लोग ले चुके थे. They will consolidate this area, and more than that, they will consolidate a force which can now go on the offensive in the coming year, maybe earlier also. If you take a look, sir, just 16th December ko, 3 दिन पहले, Putin had announced in one of his very rare press conferences that the war will not finish till Russia attains its full and complete objectives. What are the objectives? Denazification and demilitarization of Ukraine. Yani ki the destruction of its army, and more importantly, politically denazification matlab the removal of Zelensky from power. Will they be able to attain it, sir? As a military man, I think yes. Next year, Ukraine is now today in a very weak position. The US, जैसे आपने बता दिया, the attention has been diverted. They have given them $116 billion. अभी इसके आगे they say we want the money to be sent to Israel. We want money to build a wall between USA and Mexico because the threat from illegal migrants is more than the threat which Ukraine faces from Russia. So in the last, Zelensky, when he visited USA just a month ago, he came back with only good luck wishes and no aid. Without aid, sir, Ukraine can fight for only 45 days on its own steam. In a nutshell, sir, the war of attrition, जो कि Russia लड़ रहा था the past 2 years, good strategy. They are winning the war of attrition. What remains now is the political and the diplomatic war, which we shall cover as we go along.
Yeah, I agree with you. आपने जो बताया military situation तो stalemate में है और यूक्रेन जो है वो आगे बढ़ नहीं सकता. बट बात यह है कि रशिया भी वापस ऑफेंसिव में नहीं जा सकता आज के दिन. और मेरा सिर्फ ये है कि जो आपने बोला कि पुतिन has said he will not stop the war till all his objectives are reached. ये भी बात सही है, पर सवाल ये है कि क्या रशिया के पास वो दम है ये करने के लिए. बात इसमें सिर्फ मिलिट्री ये नहीं है, क्योंकि अगर आप हम मैप देखेंगे तो बड़ा क्लियर जाहिर होता है कि अगर आप पूरा ले लोगे militarily, then you might be, have to face a counterinsurgency.
Yes.
Right? So,
Right.
So, in that context, do you think Russia will make the mistake of, trying to take over more land?
Sir, if we see today, they've already taken over the areas they wanted. They said Donbass. Donbass is the area.
ये इसमें दो
is theirs.
मेरा सब इसमें दो राय नहीं है कि जो एरिया इनके पास है वो यूक्रेन के पास वापस नहीं जाएगा, वो उसके पास है. पर मेरा सवाल यह है कि क्या रशिया even with its consolidated force, even with its economy going up, even despite this thing, will he make the mistake of occupying more area of Ukraine?
He may be able to move up to the line of the Dnieper River, sir, next year.
वो तो चंद किलोमीटर ही है आगे.
हाँ, वही मैं कहता हूँ, अगर वहां तक पहुंच गए, they have a beautiful dividing line between Russia and Ukraine, and all that area comes into it. कितना आगे जाना है? 40
वो
kilometers.
5-6 किलोमीटर ना, बस वो मैक्सिमम 30-40.
So yes, sir, but the line of the Dnieper River, if it gets that area, can you imagine? I think that's why we'll head for next year, pakka. And he will
So that is
use
the end.
Yes,
So
sir.
जो आप बोल रहे हो, वो मैप देखते हैं,
Yes,
तो
sir.
डनेपर रिवर और डिनीप्रो, कार्किव डिनीप्रो का लाइन है वो.
वही लाइन है.
वहां उससे ज्यादा आगे नहीं जाएगा. तो ये जो वो थोड़ा बहुत आगे जाने से या ना जाने से रशिया को कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा, क्योंकि मैं रीट्रेट करना चाहता हूं कि उसके जो प्यूटिन के युद्ध का क्या मुख्य एम्स थे. एक तो डीनाजिफिकेशन वगैरह वगैरह. उसके साथ साथ ही वांटेड टू एंश्योर दैट यूक्रेन डज नॉट जॉइन NATO.
Correct.
And NATO does not get deployed in Ukraine. ये दोनों तो whether he goes to Dnipro or not, he still got that. Okay.
Right.
And
right.
NATO has virtually lost interest in Ukraine आज के दिन.
Absolutely.
तो अगर आप देखोगे तो Putin has reached where he wanted to reach, right?
Yes.
And I don't think it's in his capability to change Zelensky unless people.
Sir,
That's my view.
I agree. So that is the reason I was coming to. Zelensky is standing for elections in this year. One of the aims is, like they say, denazification matlab Zelensky ko nikal do. That's a Nazi party. One more military push, a defeat, will more or less put public opinion against Zelensky and may ensure his defeat. And then Russia will do what they usually do: put a pro-Russian ruler who will be there in his place. They have been doing in Ukraine all throughout. Perhaps at the long.
ये जो आप बोल रहे हो, मैं मानता हूँ ये एक ऑप्शन है.
सर,
एक तरफ ये एक ऑप्शन है, राइट? एंड गेम जो है, दिस कुड बी द राइट. ओके. व्हाट आर द अदर ऑप्शंस? बड़ा सिंपल. मेरा सवाल कि बाकी और क्या ऑप्शन है इसमें?
Okay. The other option, sir, is status quo.
Okay.
Today, same status quo जो उन्होंने किया था in Crimea. It is what you call ipso facto ours, जिसकी लाठी उसकी भैंस. हमने ले लिया क्रीमिया, अभी हम रखेंगे. हमने ले लिया ये 4 प्रोविंस, अभी हम रखेंगे. ये अभी LOC बन गया. आप लोग sanctions करो, जो करना है करो. We shall fight a LOC war. अभी already it's called the LOC. It's called line of contact, which to my mind is the most likely option, sir. Because जब उन्होंने क्रीमिया किया था 2014 में, the battle along the line of control in both Donbass continued for 8 years. तो अभी क्या हो गया? LOC shifted 200 kilometers westward. They will hold on.
मैं मानता हूँ आप जो बोल रहे हो, बिल्कुल मानता हूँ. अगर the options अगर आप देखेंगे तो जो लाइन आज का है वो यार डिनिप्रो तक जा सकता है.
Yes.
तो दोनों हालत में Russia will be committed to a fight in Ukraine, isn't it?
In the present situation, they are better off because the areas they have got is more pro-Russian speaking.
देखिए नहीं, मैं कहीं और जा रहा हूँ. मैं आपको और कहीं लेके जा रहा हूँ.
Right.
Whether they are good, bad or ugly, वो बात अलग है. But Russia will be committed in a war, whether they are at this location or in Dnipro.
Yes. Unless they have a negotiated peace with Ukraine.
हाँ, तो अभी आ रहे हो, अभी ये. So अभी आप आ रहे. नहीं, I'm taking you there only.
point. I understand your point. So it reinforces mine. To go for a negotiated peace, they will go in from a position of strength.
नहीं
To
नहीं,
make
but I'm not saying what will Russia do. I'm not saying, look, for one moment, I'm not against Russia, I'm not against Ukraine. I am only seeing the options and the end game की क्या क्या हो सकता है.
right.
Right. तो ये है, एक आप बोल रहे हो कि वन ऑफ द
Totally.
ऑप्शंस जो आएगा, चाहे वो आज के इलाके में हो या कल के दिन अगर ऑफेंसिव जाके और 10-15 किलोमीटर आगे जाके करो, तो नेगोशिएटेड पीस की बात हो रही है.
बिल्कुल सही है. Totally.
नेगोशिएटेड पीस में क्या वो 10 किलोमीटर इधर है या उधर है, कुछ ज्यादा फर्क नहीं पड़ता.
उससे फर्क पड़ेगा.
ओके, बिकॉज मुद्दे बड़े हैं उसमें. तो ये नेगोशिएटेड पीस जो है, लेट्स पुट 2-3, व्हाट विल बी रशिया स्टैंड ऑन नेगोशिएटेड पीस, उसका क्या मुद्दे होंगे नेगोशिएटेड पीस में. रुकिए उसी प्रकार व्हाट विल बी यूक्रेन stand on the negotiated peace.
Interesting question, sir.
हाँ, दे तीसरी बात ये, right, तीसरी बात, what will be Europe's terms for this negotiated peace, because Europe is a player in this deal.
Yes.
And what is USA's terms, because ये 4 term चाहिए आपको.
Superb, sir. Superb. Now, the biggest problem in the negotiated peace, quote unquote, is the fact that there is no start ground as of today, sir. Zelensky ने एक 10-point peace plan बनाया था, in which he said, yes, we will enter negotiations provided Russia vacates each inch of Ukrainian territory, including Crimea. They give you war damages, return prisoners, ऐसे 20 point बना दिए. Now, Russia came up with just one line: the provinces which are ours, Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, are ours. No negotiation on that. Let's start negotiating anything else beyond that. So the start point never came about. Today, Russia is in a position to enforce the fact that this is ours.
नहीं, देखिए.
No, I'm coming to that, sir. So the point which Russia will be negotiating is, okay, this is land is ours, and in return of that, we have peace. The land for peace policy, as they are talking about.
Okay, that's a good one.
Bombing, and land is ours, and we give you peace in return, sir. That may be a
fine. So that is the starting point for Russia. You have said the Ukraine का starting point is कि भाई आप पीछे हट जाओ, तब हम बात करेंगे. Right. अभी यूरोप का क्या स्टैंड होगा?
यूक्रेन का स्टैंड होगा वेरी गुड. उन लोग भी तो तंग आ गए. They said, okay, very good. Ukraine, you please surrender these 4 provinces for peace. They shall do so. Europe is not so interested in the fight as much as USA is. They would rather have things go back to normal. Let the oil start flowing. Let the gas start flowing. They will build up their defenses to keep Russia at bay in the long term. But for now, they are also interested in having the land for peace agreement, which is what Germany and France are saying, sir.
Okay, एक और चीज मैं बताना चाहता हूं, इसमें बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है. आप बार बार बोलते आ रहे हो कि रशिया इज इन अ पोजीशन ऑफ स्ट्रेंथ वगैरह वगैरह. इसमें एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट सोचने वाली बात है कि वन ऑफ द मेजर थिंग्स ऑफ रशिया was to keep NATO away from itself.
Right, दूर. Sir.
But अभी क्या हुआ है कि फिनलैंड और स्वीडन जो है ना, वो NATO के हिस्से बन गए.
Right.
तो उससे क्या है, NATO has come and sat on Russia's border square along Finland.
Right.
जो यूक्रेन में नहीं हुआ है, वो NATO has come to the doorstep of Russia on the north already.
Finland and Sweden, yes.
And उसके पीछे, people don't understand the geography. I don't know whether in this map it is there, but let us see. ऊपर है तो.
No, इसमें नहीं है. Further to the west, sir.
हाँ, वो क्या है कि इसमें
at the moment Romania and Poland are part of NATO, but left में Sweden शुरू हो जाएगा.
Sweden और Finland हो गए. So there is a maritime border of NATO with the, Russia,
Right.
and there is a physical border of Russia on Finland.
Correct.
So NATO has actually come closer to USA.
Close. Correct.
So has USA, has Russia, not closer to USA,
To
has
US, to
come, NATO
Russia.
has come close to Russia and sitting on
Correct.
its borders. So don't
Right.
you think Russia has already lost that game?
Sir, let me give you one more scenario, sir. They have come to NATO. Bilkul theek. They have been, NATO has been inching forward for 1,500 kilometers over the past 20 years. They have been inching forward. This is a part of the inching policy. Now, even if NATO has come out there, let me give you one more scenario. Assuming Donald Trump comes into power next year and he says, I want to get
नहीं, वो
USA
अलग,
out of NATO,
नहीं
then
नहीं,
where
एक
is
मिनट
NATO?
एक मिनट नहीं नहीं नहीं, वो तो हो नहीं सकता.
Huh,
We'll not talk of that because that he tried once and it didn't work. The fact is, today NATO is sitting on Russia's front.
right, right,
Russia
sir.
has to deal with another 1,300, 400 kilometers on the Finland thing and a
Borders,
maritime
right,
border with Sweden. So,
right.
to that extent, the Ukraine war, ka
Uh-huh,
outflow on, the outcome on Russia
uh-huh,
is that they might have ensured that NATO is not on the Ukraine border,
right.
but it is sitting on its northern border.
Yes,
That is
yes,
the thing which has happened.
yes,
Second,
yes.
now you just think of Russia's status. Russia has now a border with NATO on the north
Mm-hmm.
and a uneasy border with Ukraine in the south.
Right,
All put together, this whole border is about 3,000 kilometers.
right.
So, to say that Russia is in a strong position to bargain
Okay,
is also has its issues. So,
okay.
Russia has a lot of issues to bargain.
Uh-huh,
How Russia buys peace, the
uh-huh.
counter, as you said, is Donetsk, Luhansk, Crimea, that belt which it has got. So, this is a thing which Russia has to contend with.
I agree.
Okay.
They'll have to balance it out. Right,
तो ये नहीं कि यूक्रेन हार गया इस युद्ध में और रशिया जीत गया, इसीलिए स्टेलमेट है. पॉलिटिकली, डिप्लोमेटिकली इट इज स्टिल स्टेलमेट.
right,
स्ट्रेटेजिकली आल्सो इट्स अ स्टेलमेट और इसमें कोई ब्रेक नहीं है.
right.
ठीक है ना? अच्छा, अभी आते हैं. आपने बोल दिया कि यूरोप डजंट वांट दिस वॉर एनी मोर. ओके,
The
कुछ हद तक
indicators
सही
show
है.
that.
इंडिकेशन तो शो दैट कि भाई यूरोप थक गया है, वो
Yes,
लड़ने से इसकी बस की बात नहीं है. पर अभी आते हैं यूएसए के बारे में.
that's the most important, sir. That's the
हाँ, तो
most
यूएसए के बताइए. हाँ, यूएसए बताइए.
important.
आपने
USA
जैसे बोला है कि यूएसए में अभी जैसे अब जेलेंस्की गया वहां, उसको पैसा नहीं मिला, उसको अच्छे शब्द मिले,
right,
उन्होंने बोला भाई जाओ, जो भी करना है
right,
कर लो.
right, right, right.
तो यूएसए में देयर इज वन लॉबी व्हिच सेज क्लोज दिस वॉर.
Absolutely. Republicans don't want it.
Some people say continue. So what
Right.
do you think USA stance is going to be going ahead of this war?
The US stance is what's going to determine how the war will close, sir. And
Yeah.
for USA, their strategy is depending on weakening Russia continually. They know the aid they have given Ukraine will not suffice for them to win the war, but it'll suffice to prolong the war, extend it, and keep on weakening Russia so that it no longer poses a threat in the long term. Like you said, sir, Russia is in an uneasy position. Had Ukraine been infused with more weapon and equipment where they could fight more for maybe a year longer, Russia is spending $1 billion a day on the war. They're losing people, everything. So, weakening of Russia is the US policy, and they would love to extend the war as long as possible. But even inside the USA, it is a divided house. The Republicans definitely don't want to give, they are already questioning this $116 billion. What have you got to show for it? And sir, to show you, to tell you about the US position, मैं आपको एक बड़ी अच्छी कहानी बताना चाहता हूँ, which I heard
बताइए
from
बताइए.
the horse's mouth, the person who was there when it happened, sir. You see, when the Russia-Ukraine war broke out, he was the diplomat posted out in Kiev. And if you remember, a famous Russian armored column, the column was coming from Belarus towards Kiev, और फिर 10 दिन के लिए for no reason it halted. अब तक nobody got a real answer for that. So he was telling me it halted because at that time the diplomats, the Ukrainians and the Russian diplomats had got in direct touch with each other. They met in Odessa, and his exact words, he said, they're like Indians, Pakistani, Punjabi chappe lage, vodka drinking. They were talking, and it was agreed in 3 days' time that Russia will withdraw, Ukraine will give a written guarantee not to join NATO, agree to a security guarantee, and the war would have been terminated. Here, everything seemed to be hunky dory, and that after a third evening, the US ambassador to Ukraine came over. He said, "Mujhe pata nahi what he told them, but next morning the diplomats refused to agree to anything. They moved back and the war resumed." This was told to me, sir, by the person who was
नहीं यार, ये बात आप जो बोल रहे हो बिल्कुल मैं सहमत हूँ.
तो मैं आपको ये कहानी बताना चाहता हूँ to tell you कि this is the level of the US involvement in trying to keep the war going.
नहीं,
तो
ये
उनका
आप जो बोल रहे हो बिल्कुल सही है. मैं बट उसके ऑप्शंस क्या है और क्यों है ऑप्शंस? यूएसए के क्या ऑप्शंस? या
So USA के तो दो options है. One is continue funding Ukraine so that they can prolong the war. The other is stop funding and focus inward or on other threats that are emerging in the Middle East or in against China.
Okay, so that is the two options.
There are two major options. Yes.
ठीक है, उसका बेनिफिट क्या होगा यूएसए के लिए पहले ऑप्शन में, बेनिफिट क्या होगा दूसरे ऑप्शन में?
पहले बेनिफिट होगा सर, by keeping the war going, they see a threat from Russia.
What
so
threat?
I think it's a legacy of the Cold War. That USSR threat was there.
Okay.
And also, sir, another thing, it is a personal animosity of Biden and Putin. Remember, Putin tried to influence the elections against him.
Okay.
And as you know, personalities have a great role in great power politics.
Right.
So,
okay, I have a different theory on this. Let me explain that.
Please, sir.
You see, logically, the balance of power, Vishwa mein, taken aaj ke din, is between three great powers. Russia, China, and USA.
Right.
Logically, इसमें क्या है कि historically also, in the last century, USA got China together to break USSR.
Correct.
So there is a school of thought, which is the John Mearsheimer school of thought, which says, your main threat is China. So you should have
won Russia over?
Won Russia over and fought against China.
Correct.
By going into this war with Russia, right, and trying to break Russia or whatever you wanted to do,
right.
अभी क्या है, वो दोस्त बन गए, you are 1 against 2.
Right.
तो ये क्या है, it's not a winning strategy. This is what John Mearsheimer says.
Totally agree, sir.
So logically ये agreement है. But the counter argument to this, which is the current thinking and current किस तरीके से चल रहा है, weaken Russia to such an extent, right? Weaken Russia to such an extent that Russia cannot help China, and then USA can take on China.
An adversary.
Let me finish the story. One adversary, you can finish him off. Okay. And in this, there is some logic. There's some logic because if this war continues in this manner, Russia is entangled with Ukraine in any manner. With Finland sitting already on top, Russia keeps getting weakened. Because war is war at the end of the day.
Absolutely, sir.
Right? And then USA can tackle China, and the thinking is also that China might be a pacing threat to USA. यही बोलते हैं ना, China is a pacing threat to China. But this pacing threat is facing severe economic and demographic problems.
Now, right?
Now नहीं, ये अगले 5-6 साल चलता रहेगा.
Okay.
So So there are people in USA, there's a school of thought, and I also see that school of thought. He has strategic patience to continue degrading Russia and
Right.
let China go into auto degrade, and then you can handle China. So this is one school of thought.
Very logical, sir. Very, very
Very
logical.
logical, very logical. The second school of thought, जो आपने बोला ट्रम्प स्कूल ऑफ थॉट,
Uh-huh.
वो कहता है यार छोड़ो, रशिया तो मेरा दोस्त होना चाहिए, उसके साथ सुलह करो, यूक्रेन को इट डजंट मैटर व्हाट हैपेंस टू यूक्रेन,
Huh.
गेट गेट रशिया आउट ऑफ द इक्वेशन एंड डील विद चाइना वन टू वन.
Right.
तो ये दो ऑप्शंस हैं मेरे, आप इसके ऊपर दोनों के ऊपर कमेंट कीजिए.
So, both options are logical. The first option is being followed by the Biden school of thought. Let me put it this way. The second option is being followed by the Trump school of thought. So I think it just tells us one thing. The outcome, or rather the course in which the war is going to take, will be shaped very much by the outcome of the US elections. It doesn't have to be Trump. Even the Republicans follow the second school of thought. So even the Republican comes, sir, they will follow the second school of thought.
Hey, well, that is questionable.
Yes.
Whether Republicans
No,
are,
I agree with. I think what you've given is superbly logical viewpoints. Two viewpoints of Russia, which I'm sure the US are debating within themselves. But the decision will be taken largely dependent on the party that comes into power in the next US elections.
Okay. So, तो जो स्थिति अभी अब तक हमने डिसाइड किया, भाई विंटर में कुछ नहीं होगा, विंटर के बाद जो भी कहानी होगा उस वक्त होगा, whether this war will go up or down, यानी दोबारा लड़ाई छिड़ेगा कि नहीं, और वो निर्धारित है होगा यूएसए का इलेक्शंस के आउटकम के ऊपर, ठीक है, और उसके बाद सोचा जाएगा कि भाई पीस में जाना है या नहीं, और किस तरीके से शांति स्थापित होगा कि नहीं, वो उस वक्त. तो अगले 6 से 8 महीने तक ये लड़ाई चलता रहेगा ऐसे, ना किसी का जीत होगा ना किसी का लिंगर ऑन करता रहेगा. ठीक है,
जैसे अब देखा जाए तो पूरे साल तो लिंगर ऑन करता रहा था. लेटर हाफ ऑफ द ईयर इट विल कंटिन्यू लाइक दिस लो लेवल,
इट विल कंटिन्यू.
यस सर.
ठीक. तो ये जो बैलेंस ऑफ पावर की कहानी में चाइना का क्या रोल है?
Very, very interesting, sir, because now China will want Russia to emerge stronger because Russia is leaning towards it. For it, this war, in a way, it suits China. I'm not talking the economic aspects. In the geopolitical aspect, it suits China because Russia has been isolated with everybody else, and it will now coming closer to China's embrace, maybe as a junior partner, but it's still there. So, for China, it suits it very much. The other thing, more importantly, sir, जैसे आप कह रहे हो चाइना का तो इकोनॉमिक डिक्लाइन चल रहा है. They're having a lot of internal problems which are not coming out. I mean, you bring it out in your talks. But the war is diverting USA and the West in Europe against the main threat of China, which they perceived was the main threat of China. So for them, again, the war suits them.
बिल्कुल, मैं बिल्कुल सहमत हूं कि आज का स्थिति जो है चाइना के लिए अच्छा है. क्योंकि यूएसए has got entangled with Ukraine, USA has got entangled in the Middle East, and China अपना रास्ता नाप रहा है और जो भी कर रहा है. पर बात यह है कि does China have a free run despite all this? इस स्थिति में हालत अगर बदलेगा तो क्या होगा, हम बात करेंगे. इस स्थिति में भी China doesn't seem to be having a free run. By USA, because USA is not committed its forces anywhere.
Yes.
Forces are committed there. And they are ready.
Though, say if you remember, the USA had to divert 2 of its carrier groups to the Mediterranean with the Middle East war. That's another thing coming in the equation, which will decide it a lot. So, both the Middle East war, I would say the Middle East and the Ukraine conflict, and the diversion of US time, attention, resources, diplomatic power, everything suits China.
Yeah, But it doesn't suit China because in one way, let me explain it to you. उसका
Sir,
एनर्जी प्रॉब्लम है, वो तेल चाहिए
yes,
उसको गाड़ी में से, और वहां फौज इकट्ठा हो गया यूएसए का, यूएसए उस इलाके को कंट्रोल करेगा। अभी रेड सी रूट्स बंद हो रहे हैं वो हौतीज की वजह से,
yes, yes,
राइट? तो
right.
much as we think China is benefiting from the Ukraine war, China is also suffering because of this Ukraine war.
True, true. Agree, sir. Collateral damage तो उनको भी हो रहा है.
उनके वो भी हो रहा है, हमें पता नहीं चल रहा पर हो रहा है।
हाँ.
और लोग हर रोज, अभी यूरोप ने बोल दिया कि भाई अब अगर आप रशिया को सपोर्ट करोगे तो हम आपके साथ संबंध नहीं रखेंगे। वो तो
Trade,
यूरोप ने
economic ties, yes,
साफ
yes.
बता दिया कि आप रशिया के साथ नाता तोड़ दो, सपोर्ट करना छोड़ दो, तब हम आपके साथ बिजनेस शुरू करेंगे, नहीं तो हम नहीं करेंगे।
That is why no
अगर
statement has come from a Chinese leader for many months now, sir, about the war.
मंथ्स, हाँ,
Yes.
तो देखिए, ठीक है, तो एक नजर से देखेंगे तो चाइना, जैसे आपने बताया, चाइना हैज हैविंग अ गुड टाइम इन द यूक्रेन वॉर बिकॉज ऑफ द यूक्रेन वॉर। और दूसरी नजरिया से देखोगे तो चाइना इज इन अ फिक्स
उनकी प्रॉब्लम
कर
है. Yes, yes.
ओके। तो अभी आगे जाके देखेंगे चाइना का हालत क्या होगा। अगर ट्रम्प का कहानी हो गया और वो वॉर खत्म हो गया यूक्रेन में, फिर चाइना का क्या हाल होगा?
Trump has one thing about his foreign policy जो सही था was he recognized China as the main threat.
मेन थ्रेट या
He recognized it. Baki presidents tried to mollycoddle them. He recognized it. He also recognized the need to get Russia to their side. And he was doing it quite, even the Middle East, he was trying his bit to get things in place.
हाँ
So if
यार,
he
उसी के टाइम में तो अब्राहम्स अकॉर्ड हुआ।
God हुआ था, सब उसके टाइम पर हुआ था, you know. So in spite of all that showmanship, some of his foreign policy actions were actually quite sensible.
या
Now
वेरी गुड इन फैक्ट एक्चुअली।
back and say Trump goes back to my buddy Putin. He is actually a
हाँ
good. Okay, and he said, okay, ठीक है, we will agree to a negotiated peace in which Russia gets whatever it wants and Ukraine well fought red, but Russia the winner kind of thing. Now let me focus back on the Indo-Pacific. That would be the
इज बैड
best
न्यूज।
case scenario for everybody, less China, including India,
हाँ,
sir.
तो इंक्लूडिंग इंडिया।
Yes.
Yeah, you know what you have said is very right. So the out end game Ukraine might not be in Ukraine. It might be in South China Sea.
Oh, of course, of course, of course.
हाँ, तो ये यहाँ नहीं वहाँ हो सकता है। सो इट्स वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग। और इसके साथ साथ हमें ये भी याद रखना पड़ेगा कि यूक्रेन का युद्ध अलग नजरिया से ही नहीं देख सकते हो आप। गाड़ी देशों में क्या हो रहा है और वेस्ट एशिया में क्या हो रहा है और इसराइल और हमास के बीच में जो लड़ाई किस तरीके से चलेगा, दैट
Yes,
विल आल्सो हैव एन इम्पैक्ट,
yes. Iran will make a
राइट?
big impact. Iran,
ईरान
the Houthis,
ईरान में,
उसका बहुत फर्क
हाँ,
पड़ेगा.
राइट। So there is lot of things yet to be played. यूक्रेन वॉर हम सोच सकते हैं कि आज के दिन ठंडा पड़ा हुआ है, पर इसका जो परिणाम जो होने वाला है वो लंबे हद से तक जाने वाला है। तो अभी हम आते हैं कि भाई ये जो भी परिणाम होगा, आप ये बताइए भारत के दृष्टिकोण से।
I was waiting for this question, sir. Does this
बात करो।
does this war suit India?
हम्म,
No war fought anywhere suits any other nation. But I'll put it this way: the way India has played its cards in the war, we have made the best of the deals. I would give this government and a wonderful foreign minister, Mr. Jaishankar, 12 points out of 10 for the manner in which they've handled this war. We have got oil shock jo hona tha. We have purchased oil at $62 per barrel. We have got surpluses of oil. We are refining oil and selling it to Europe, which has saved Europe from a recession. We have maintained ties with Russia. We have maintained ties with the European Union. We have maintained ties with Ukraine. And also that strategic equation with USA is still intact. So, like I said, so no war is good for anybody as it burns people in the vicinity, all right. But the way we have played our cards in this situation, we have made the best of the deal. And I would say, barring the problems of spares and the other disruptions will take place, we have actually benefited from it, sir.
राइट। तो ये अभी तक जो हुआ है यूक्रेन की लड़ाई से भारत को काफी आई वुड से फायदा हुआ है। भारत को एक मौका मिला है कि अपना स्थिति को सुधारने के लिए, और भारत ने अपना वी हैव प्लेड अपने पत्ते अच्छे तरीके से खेल लिया हमने,
Yes.
और हम एक स्तर तक आके पहुंच गए जहां आजकल हमारा सुनवाई ही नहीं, सब बोलबाला भी है इन द लार्जर स्कीम ऑफ थिंग्स। इसमें इसमें देयर नो डाउट ऑन दैट स्कोर। बट व्हाट आई वांट यू टू से इज, ये जो दो तीन सिनेरियोस व्हिच वी हैव spelled out
Sir,
going ahead. Going ahead, where do you see this whole story going for India?
for India,
Hmm.
well, sir, like you brought out, Russia Ukraine is likely to be a long stalemate for some time to come. And for India at the moment now, I think though we are maintaining good ties with Russia, we are gradually moving towards the US and the West, which is the good thing to do. We are maintaining our strategic autonomy, all right. We are not taking any decision against the national interest or going completely into the embrace. Because a kahavat hai, it is dangerous to be USA's enemy, but it is even more dangerous to be their friend.
Yeah, it is
So,
fatal to be its friend. Yeah,
yes, oh, yes, that's the correct word. So, we are moving towards them. We are receiving good technological aid. Like the USA helped China to become a superpower by facilitating the economic rise and the integration. If USA helps us in weaning the economic channels away from China towards India, helps India become a great power or regional power status, it is very much in our benefit. And I
right.
think that is the correct stance without being overtly caught up in the embrace. Yes, we must tilt
So,
to the winning
uh,
side. Let me put it this way.
so whichever way you look at it, कि यूक्रेन का युद्ध जो भी परिणाम होगा, जो भी सिनेरियो में एंड करेगा, इंडिया is still in a good position. Am I
So far, good.
right to say
Correct?
that?
Yes,
No,
sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Going ahead also,
Good
क्योंकि
policy.
आपका जो एनर्जी का जो प्रॉब्लम है काफी हद तक हल हो गया, क्योंकि रशिया का एनर्जी आपको आता
हमारे पास आ
मिलेगा।
गई।
यूरोप
Yes.
को, जैसे आपने बोला, यूरोप को एनर्जी चाहिए, तो आपका रिफाइंड यू नो
हम उनको बचा रहे हैं।
मटेरियल
Yes.
वो तो जाएगा ही जाएगा,
हाँ.
राइट। और in terms of balance of power, Russia, USA will continue to need India to handle
Yes.
China.
Yes.
So they cannot, lot of whatever it is,
No.
they
No.
can't let. Uh,
Our position, our power, our economic strength, our strategic strength, all dictates that at the moment we are in a
Balle
nice.
balle. Yeah, balle balle is the word I use. I mean, I have no doubt about it. Okay, so that's how it has happened. पिछले एक साल से. We are talking
Yes.
of real politics and real this thing. So this is where it is. तो
हाँ.
जो अभी पिछले 45 मिनट्स में हमने ये बात किया है कि यूक्रेन का युद्ध कहाँ जाएगा, क्या परिणाम होंगे, क्या शांति स्थापित होगा, क्या रिकंस्ट्रक्शन होगा यूक्रेन में, ये सब आगे की बातें हैं। पर जो भी होगा उसका परिणाम और उसका क्या इफेक्ट होगा on many issues we have highlighted. Shall we take a few questions, or
Yes, sir.
unless you
Yes.
have something more to say?
No, no, sir. I think we have covered it very nicely. And I think the audience would now like to put up their inputs and their queries too.
Yeah, हाँ, या पहले क्वेश्चन है कि ओके, या लेट मी सी। ओके, ओके, As an armored corps officer, can you comment on the role played by armor in this war and its relevance going into future wars?
Very good.
Tanks, BMPs have been struck by drones, so how will we use tanks going ahead?
Very good. Very good question. You
Yeah,
know, do not be. Let me describe the use of armor in this war. And इस war में देखा 3 phases थे. One was the Russian offensive, in which the Russians did not use mechanized forces well for 2 reasons. Or one major reason, timing. February में जब उन्होंने अटैक किया था, the entire countryside is covered in melting snow. Their most important asset is mobility could not be used. They had to go through the roads, go through cities where they were sitting ducks for ambushes. Also, the Ukrainians fought a very good defensive battle. They used drones very effectively. But jab Ukrainians launched their own offensive, not the summer offensive, the offensive of 2022, August 22, in Kharkiv sector,
Kharkiv.
they used tanks beautifully. Only two brigades, but both of them they pushed straight through, traveled 190 kilometers, traveled 110 kilometers, reached the line of the river, the Oskil River, cut off all the Russians behind them, and the infantry started clearing them with the use of BMPs. Also, like they say, I think you mentioned about built up areas, about tanks being used in built up areas. The Ukrainians also developed tactics to use mechanized force in built up areas. We have to fight there. And what did they do? All the built up areas, like the normal doctrine says, the बाहर से attack करो, foothold ले लो, अंदर जाओ, pick it up brick by brick. They simply had a thunder run with tanks and BMPs going into the center of the town, establish a foothold in the center of the town, and then move their way outwards using tanks and BMPs. These innovative tactics show that yes, mechanized forces can be used extremely well. Come to the third phase now, when the Ukrainians launched their offensive against Russia. What happened to them? They just stalled in the line of the forward defensive minefield because they could not breach it. Because when tanks move, you have to have complementary engineering resources with it. The Russians have now used drones as effectively, if not more effectively, than the Ukrainians have. But the lesson it tells you is tanks, yes, we will require them. They can they'll continue to play a very vital role, but new tactics like drones, integrated battlefield, network communications have to be implemented. Tank design will have to be changed. We don't want these big, huge, heavy tanks any longer. Go in for medium tanks, light tanks, maybe with not such heavy guns, but with more situational awareness for the commander. These changes would have to be done to armor doctrines, but yes, it does have a place in the future battlefield and will continue to do so.
Yeah, now let me explain what Ajay has said in a different manner. Whether in the initial phases of the Ukraine battle, everyone thought the role of the tanks is over. But that's not done. It's not over at all. Okay. Second, third phase of the Ukraine battle, tanks were used liberally, especially in that offensive against Kharkov. Mech forces played a huge role.
Yes.
Only thing is, in this entire battle, except the Ukrainians in that phase of the battle, the use of armor has been timid because people have forgotten. And second, if you are bold and you use armor, in outflanking moves, you can still beat drones. But that we have not come to because armor was not used the way it was supposed to be used. ये drones का बोलबाला ज़्यादा हो गया, right? Second, there is a shift towards firepower. Now the point, अगर आप देखेंगे, Russia has used firepower extensively, but they didn't match it with mobility. They didn't match it with maneuver. Maneuver and firepower always go hand in hand. So where you think you'll use only drones, where you think you'll only use firepower and do without tanks and infantry, you will not win. You know, in future also it will be a combined arms battle. Okay, integrated battle where you need firepower, you need infantry, and you need tanks in the right proportion depending on the terrain and that condition. So this is not going to go away, drones or no drones. Rahi baat using it in our context. In the Himalayan context, whether there are drones or not, whether there is firepower or not, the value of armor and tanks in most places is limited. In fact, it isn't there. But there are few places where you need armor. In those places, they'll not go away. But you have to adapt using armor in Himalayas in a different manner. If you think you'll go on outflanking moves and long maneuvers, nahi. In the Himalayas, especially in eastern Ladakh and in Sikkim in some places, you use armor as close support equipment with protection. You use the protective value of armor and the firepower of armor and not the mobility of armor.
Very nicely
Okay?
put, sir.
So armor has three things: firepower, mobility, and protection. So you use protection and firepower, right? So, and the efficacy of drones in such high altitudes is also questionable. Because in high altitudes, during bad weather and high wind speed conditions, which often come about, drones won't function. In close areas like Galwan, Shalwan, they might. So there are, you have to redefine the way you're going to use armor in high altitudes, especially against China. Against Pakistan, armor will have no role to play in the mountain sector because wahan to you can't use. But you come to the semi-mountainous terrain, Rajouri downwards, or in fact, I would say Naushara southwards, Aknur, and down Cham, Joria, Aknur, and downwards, armor will still be needed. Question is whether Pakistan is capable of fighting, wo alag baat hai, but you'll need it. So to say that, you know, tanks, relevance of tanks in battlefield has vanished, I think is a very foolish proposition. So that means one doesn't know what is the value of a tank in battle. Okay, so I will leave it at that. Uh, both opponents come from the same tribe or genetic pool, if you prefer. As long as Ukraine gets external support, financial or otherwise, this war is unlikely to end. Your views?
This is something which we had covered. Like I said, the war is Ukraine can fight 45 days on its own. And the
Hmm.
amount of aid it is going to receive is finite. After all, let me put it in this manner. Ukraine is already expending more artillery shells in 1 month than all NATO nations put together produce in 1 year. So, how much aid will they continue giving them? Like General Shankar brought out, USA wants the war to continue to keep on weakening Russia. They will keep on giving them aid, but there will be a point when that aid will stop. We are already seeing the aid reducing. So this war is
Yeah,
dependent now on how much the aid can be sustained. And in my view, the culmination point of the aid flow is coming to a close.
yeah, I agree with you. There's a comment by Tarun. I'm seeing Tarun after a long time. A great analysis, sir. Ukraine has only one thing to sign on the deal. Europe will say what USA says. Yeah. Only point is what America and Russia decide. Russia will never give any inch of its what he has already has. I agree.
Agree with him, sir.
Okay. Sir, Germany ka kya hoga? Their economy can't survive without Russia and gas and oil and what? Yeah, yeah, it's all yours.
This is very interesting because look at one thing: Germany and Russia have got a huge historic enmity. It is a word enmity. In the war, in the World War II, what Germany has done to Russia, to the then USA, including Ukraine, is something they've never forgotten. And if you take a look at it, when the first Leopards, of which Ukraine were utilized, were destroyed by the Russians, their headlines read, German panzers again destroyed on Russian soil. Germany ka fear is Russia has now come 200 kilometers closer to their borders. They're still some distance away. They got Poland, Romania, all in between. But that fear will continue with them for many, I would say, years, if not decades. At the same time, they are dependent on the economic growth for the oil and gas which flows in through them. So the indicators are Germany will have to strike a balance. And the balance they're striking is what one gets from the readings of Germany and France and the other European Union leaders is they are coming to the conclusion that both nations would have to start rebuilding their defense, spend more than 2% of their GDP to be strong enough to stave off a future Russian threat. So weakening Russia actually suits them. At the same time, continue economic ties with them so that the oil and gas flows, which is a very delicate catch-22 situation. Because by buying oil from Russia, you're indirectly strengthening it to be in a position to be stronger later on.
Actually, Europe prefers this route because if they have to buy oil directly from Russia, it will be at normal rates. Now, Russia is selling oil at a discount and losing. So, as part of the weakening of Russia, they're in a okay situation. The problem for Europe is their energy. उनके पास energy नहीं है, यूरोप में energy नहीं है. That is why Europe and USA have to take a call how to end either the Israel-Hamas war and restart the IMEC because the future of energy is from that area. That was what it was being thought of, or make peace with Russia and start getting things. So something will happen. Let us see. Okay. So will American policy change if government changes? We don't know. We don't know. Logically, it should not change the way I look at it. If Trump comes, we don't know. Okay. Okay. This is another question. Sir, does China and Mongolia have any border dispute? What happened in the 60s when Russia and China had border skirmishes? No, they don't have any dispute. I mean, Mongolia is too weak to have a dispute, as simple as that. Right? China has taken what it wants from Mongolia and is very happy with it. And it has created a huge buffer between itself and Russia through Mongolia. That will not change. Okay. So at this point of time, China is sitting on a pig's back as for on that border. So I don't think things will change. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Why is Russia not using frontline fighter aircraft as they're conserving? Are they conserving their firepower? Yeah, all yours, Sajid.
This is one of the questions which are still unanswered even now. Russia has not used its air force effectively at all. Throughout the war, there have been just 75 Su-25 aircraft which have been deployed. Now, why they have not done it is not been satisfactorily answered by almost any analyst I've spoken to. One of the things they were saying is, yes, they are preserving their frontline aircraft in case of the contingency of NATO entering the war, when they would be requiring it. Putin says he's deliberately not using aircraft because he doesn't want to cause collateral damage to the civilians, which is what the Israelis are doing. But what has even surprised me and many people is the initial plan was simple. Russia would get air superiority and then use the land forces to move in at will. Virtually till the end of the war, that it's now when Ukraine is running out of AD resources that they are getting some degree of air superiority, but they have not been able to attain it throughout the war, which is one of the unanswered questions of the war.
Yeah, and you have to understand this war has become a war of attrition, not on military rules, but it is geopolitically and diplomatically, it's a war of attrition. That's the more important game which is going on there. Okay. Okay. Where does artillery fit in and its role in the battlefield planning and management? Your views? Yeah.
Sir, I think you would be best suited for that, sir. Your entire
Hmm.
chapter is on artillery.
No, I thought you could also give it a shot. Look, value of artillery has just gone up. Value of artillery has gone up not only in this Ukraine war. If you look at the Hamas war also, it's artillery which is playing the game. Okay. There it's being used in a different manner. Here it's being used in a different manner. But artillery, management, firepower, rockets, these are all the name of the game. Look, if there's one thing which has come out in both these wars, first thing is wars are going to be a lot more conventional than we think. Second, they're going to be long and violent. Most of the wars which hereafter we enter into will not have great exit options. And fourth, whoever has the stronger artillery and stronger manpower will win, at least militarily. Okay, it will, if, or if nothing, he'll be appear to be winning on the winning side. So if you don't have artillery, you might be on the losing side. That's the other way of looking at it. Okay. Uh, so the reactive armor obsolete or is it still
Obsolete?
relevant? Yeah, obsolete.
No. No, you see, that if you take a look at it, it is a reactive armor which has proved extremely effective. Because you take a look at it, the modern anti-tank warheads with the tandem warheads,
Mm.
top attack mode, were able to penetrate
Mm.
most Russian tanks. But reactive armor, tanks fitted with reactive armor, and at a later juncture, the tanks appeared on the Russian side, were all fitted with, well, not all, were largely fitted with reactive armor, in which the anti-tank weapons could not have so much effect. Now, more than the Russia-Ukraine war, look at the use of armor by the Israelis. Their anti-tank losses have been not not as much as would have been expected in built-up areas, even though Hamas has got a fair amount of anti-tank weapons, especially in the form of handled RP and things like this, because their reactive armor has proved very effective. So, reactive armor will have a greater role. The only thing is you have to balance that exorbitant cost of reactive
Mm.
armor vis-a-vis the protection it provides you.
See, it is not only reactive armor. There's also this point defense system, terminal defense of armor. It's a combination of reactive armor and the terminal defense of armor with other methods by kinetic methods, which will be which will save armor and keep it intact. And that is something which we have to pay the cost for it one day or the other. There's no doubt on that. Okay, Ganesh, that says what policies behave Ukrainian about India after Russia Ukraine? Yeah, see, आप देखिए गणेश दत्त जी, यूक्रेन के साथ हमारे संबंध अच्छे हैं आज के दिन भी. तो अगर जब भी ये होगा खत्म, हमारा रोल होगा यूक्रेन में, यूक्रेन को खड़ा करने में और दोबारा कंस्ट्रक्ट करने में और वगैरह वगैरह होगा. इसमें मेरे को डाउट ही नहीं है. ओके. ओके. This war proves that Ukraine was a proxy war fought by US and West against Russia. It also proved a good staging ground for weapon test. There's no doubt about it, Abhijit. This is
Of
a
course,
thought process right from the beginning. Yeah.
of course.
Isme, yeah. I was hearing Germany has deployed troops in Finland, with Germany and maybe other EU nations developing military strength. What is the impact for globe and Bharat especially? Your views. Come, Ajay.
You see, I have not heard of Germany deploying troops in Finland, but now Finland has become part of NATO. So NATO, of which Germany is a member, would be entitled to position troops and weaponry on their soil, right? And one thing is, with Germany and other European Union nations are developing their military strength, if you ask me, it is a good thing. For many decades, the European Union had believed in not spending money on defense till this war got the threat so close to them. By having a stronger European Union, we will also have one more pole of power, which is
Coming
well
up.
disposed towards India, which can be used against the longer term threat of China should it emerge. That's how one looks at it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I am not asking for the end of a war, but a ceasefire seems reasonable because the more the Russians move west, the lesser the local people support possible. Yeah, that's what we spoke.
We spoke about,
Yeah,
sir. You discussed that.
we spoke about it कि ये जो लाइन है आज का लाइन और डिनीप्रो के बीच में ऑसिलेट होगा इससे ज्यादा होगा नहीं. I don't think you are right, Adil. There's no doubt. Okay. How will we save artillery from small arms mass produced zones? Artillery doesn't need to be saved from this. Don't worry, we'll handle it. Hmm.
But sir, may I take on this question? This is actually an interesting thing. It's not the artillery.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would say, how would you say protect targets on the battlefield from small mass drones? You're very good. Now, remember one thing: this is artillery has been very effective in this war, but the life of each drone was just 3 to 5 sorties because they could be knocked out. Now, one of the tactics which proved extremely effective in disruptive drones was soft kills. In the sense, in an area, now the vulnerable, let me call it a vulnerable point or so, it was jammed with with radiation. So the signals to the drones were affected and they were either made to crash or they would not be able to transmit the signals. But yes, in the future battlefield, we will have to find a way to counter drones. Physical shooting down, soft kills, disrupting the communication, which is the most effective way, using other drones against them. These techniques would have to be incorporated to protect ourselves in this new weapon, which is really going to proliferate in all future wars.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's only that the drone is a new animal. That animal will have a counter animal. Don't worry. Okay. Um, I read a report that mounted artillery is going to play more important role, the standalone one, because of shoot and scoot ability. Your views. Jagpreet, let me explain to you. I don't know which report you read about, mounted artillery and standalone role. No artillery will be standalone, first and foremost. What you're talking about is rolling gun position, temporary gun position, आगे जाके fire करके भाग के आ जाओ. उसके लिए it's not necessary you need mounted gun positions only. You can do it with any gun, any towed equipment, any self-propelled equipment, any equipment with APU like Bofors. You can do all this nonsense. So the real story is mounted artillery does not give you any advantage in high altitudes. It gives you tremendous advantage in plains and deserts.
Hmm.
Okay. One. Number two, the nature of artillery is something one should understand. Artillery doesn't move, is not mobile. It is not meant to be mobile. Artillery is meant to be static. बैठ के फायर करने की जरूरत होती है. ये नहीं कि भाग के रहो इधर उधर. और हाई एल्टीट्यूड में ज्यादा भागने की जगह नहीं है. तो आपको you have to be deployed, steadily fire, and you need ammunition. Guns can go where they want. Ammunition can't go, na. And mounted artillery can only take that much ammunition. बहुत कम ammunition ले जाता है. So people forget the nature of artillery. ये तो बेवकूफ हैं जो बोलते रहते हैं. The efficacy of artillery depends completely on how much ammunition you can feed it. And artillery is a hungry animal as far as ammunition is concerned. So, and you don't have to scoot and run anywhere in battle. We won Kargil not by running around, by staying put. Even though we had the capability of scooting, we shot. We didn't scoot. Okay, so you have to think differently. And you have to think realistically. Okay, how to protect tanks and artillery from small projects? Same thing.
Cover
There's
that.
nothing very great about it.
Cover that.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Why Malaysia and Indonesia rejected Tejas? I mean, they are different. I'll take it on a different thing. Okay. Okay. Butter chicken and naan, let's say. General Gerasimo's doctrine of hybrid warfare has proven it to be as much as a bogeyman as the West made it to be before war. Right? Look, if you look at Gerasimo's conduct of war earlier in West Asia and all, he didn't use hybrid war really. He used just firepower mass and brutal tactics. Okay, so it was not a hybrid war which was used. It was a war which was fought with extreme, especially in Syria, with extreme brutality, where casualties were the thing and other things didn't matter. And Russia doesn't have a history of hybrid wars. It doesn't have the ability to fight asymmetric wars. You see their history, whether you see it in Afghanistan, or you see in Second World War, or you see their Crimean action, or you see the first phase of the Ukrainian war. They want to use force without undiluted, overwhelming force. So they don't have a hybrid philosophy at all. So let's not get involved with this. Okay. Okay. I don't see. Anand has come up with a question, but it does not relate to our thing. But I'll still take it for what it's worth. Is Japan developing their military to the same extent as the Germans? Germans probably are focusing on landwear and Japan their navy. You have any view, Ajay, or should I handle it?
Yes, I'll just give a little bit.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Japan is definitely developing the military. They're also developing the military doctrines, which is very good for us once again. And they will obviously focus on the navy because it's an island nation. But the fact that Japan is developing their navy, just like Germany and Europe are developing the armies, are good for us because these are friendly poles of power, which, by them being strong, it in a way helps contribute to our strength as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Japan is developing its armed forces, and they are even looking at nuclear forces. There is debate. So, and that's because of China's attitude. China's attitude in the South China Sea. I'll talk about it in a different thing, but let me put it. Today, South China Sea, China has problems with Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Taiwan, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia. If I left out anything, please let me know. So naturally, all these countries are arming themselves. So that's the whole story. Okay, so we've come to the end of this whole story. Uh, okay, okay. 10 lakh views in 10 months. Thank you for sharing knowledge. Yeah, look, people are not viewing. Let me be very honest with you. I don't see enough people joining Gunner Shot new, nor am I getting that many views which I got even 2 months back. I don't know why. So you have to get back and make it more interesting because I'm very sure the quality of people who are coming on Gunner Shot and talking like Ajay Singh has come is all fantastic. I can bet my bottom dollar that you will not get as good people on any other channel other than Gunner Shot. One, and second, I make them talk their best. Don't you think so, Ajay?
Have little
Compared
pinpricks,
to others,
little boost
huh?
here and there. That's why you use the
हाँ,
term that with you is always a jugalbandi. You bring on the best of
हाँ, I see. देखो ये दूसरा आदमी अच्छा हो सकता है पर उसका जो स्ट्रेंथ बाहर निकालना इज इम्पोर्टेंट अदरवाइज आप किसी चैनल में जाइए बाकी टॉक्स हैं डायलॉग्स हैं ये सब है आप उसमें जाइए एक अजय जाके बोलेगा और उसके परिणाम उसके विपरीत कोई बोलेगा नहीं और आपको बस एक तरफे का व्यू मिलता है टुडे वी हैव हैड अ डायलॉग
Yes.
ओके दैट्स व्हाट आई राइट uh yeah, I don't get notification. I don't know why you don't get notification because you should press that bell button or whatever that Google,
Subscribe.
YouTube thing is.
Subscribe to it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So that's how it is. So please subscribe, and press that bell icon. Then only you can this thing. So I think we've done a great. We've covered a lot of ground, Ajay. I must thank you um for your time. You've spent a lot of time with us today. And obviously, the subject is good. I see a few more people have come up seeing it live than a little earlier. And tomorrow we're going to have an interesting topic, and that's on Agniveers with apna Sri Iyer ji. Because आज General Naramne has said Agniveer was a hastily developed program and all that. And I had very strong views on Agniveer, or how Agniveer program or the Agnipath scheme was not that good. I had written about 6-7 articles upon it. So we're going to have a discussion on that. We're going to discuss it because what General Naramne has done is opened something. We need to discuss as a nation. It's not a matter of he's right, I'm right, or X, Y, Z is right. As a nation, we should be right. That is more important. We should not lose it. Then on 24th, I'm going to have a talk with General Vinod Bhatia on this on a professional level. Tomorrow it's going to be on a different level with Mr. Sri Iyer, right? Generic things. But with General Vinod Bhatia, I'm going to take it to a highly professional level on 24th. Because he also doesn't like the scheme. But the reality is that scheme is there. We have to make the best out of it. How to make it is the thing. So tomorrow evening, we're going to do it at 7 o'clock. Because that's the time when Sri Iyer of P Gurus is available. Of course, after that, we'll get back to 8 o'clock thing. And last but not the least, Krishna has joined as a new member. Welcome. That is about all. Anything else, Ajay, you have to say? Otherwise,
Sir,
we'll close
thank
it.
you very much. As always, it's a pleasure coming on Gunner Shot and having our dialogue, our discussion, and different viewpoints, which makes it always so exciting. Thank you,
Yeah,
and thank you to all the viewers for your wonderful questions and your views. It's truly been a pleasure being on the show, sir.
right. Thank you. Good evening and Jai Hind till tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock.